Hello, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Wow, I've been waiting for this show for a number of weeks. I love what's about to happen at the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Everybody that watches the show knows that my wife and I love the arts. We support the arts. We love everything about it. We're so happy that people are going out again, getting into all of the theaters and checking all of the wonderful things that are out there today, from the orchestra to the ballet to off-Broadway, on Broadway, all the plays, all the great stuff that's happening, all the way down from the high school level, all the way, of course, to the professional level. So I went through the Rolodex, and I've invited the husband and wife team of Red Curtain Addicts. It's Kari Lincks Coomans and, of course, Parker Coomans, and they are the CEO and co-founder, respectively, and the president and co-founder of Red Curtain Addicts. And they have built an amazing platform. And if you love the arts, if you love to search for events, concerts, artists, and much, much more curated for your particular tastes, well, Red Curtain Addicts is the right place to go. We're going to get all into it because it's such an amazing entrepreneurial story, and what they're doing so fascinating. Kari, I'll start with you. Welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series.
Thank you, Andy. It's good to be here. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
And I'm so excited to have you both on the show. Parker, congratulations for, putting together with Kari such an amazing platform. And I'd like to welcome you to the show as well.
Thank you for this. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, let's go. Kari, let's do what we always like to do at the beginning of the show. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet and tell us about Red Curtain Addicts.
Yeah, so Red Curtain Addict was created for audiences to easily discover, learn, and go to the arts that they love. There's a lot of different websites out there. There's so many arts, like you mentioned, Andy, and it can be overwhelming. And so when we really looked at how can we really solve the gap between the audiences and the arts, it was really that discovery process. So we wanted to create a website so that you can easily search across genre. You didn't have to go to Ballet.com, Symphony.com, Opera.com. It's right in one place. And then on top of that, if you don't know what to search for, there's no problem with that. We actually wanted to curate a technology that provides recommendations for you based on your personal interest. So you can take a quiz, we find out about you first, and then we suggest something to go to, versus you being like, there's 100 to go to, I'm overwhelmed, I'm just not going to go. We don't want that to happen. So we're really kind of bringing the arts to that technology speed that everybody's gotten used to.
Kari, it's so smart. The platform is so intuitive. I've been on it myself, and it's just so interesting the way you and Parker have put together this platform. Of course, Kari, you have an amazing background in the arts yourself, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Parker, your background really has to do with sort of the technology and entrepreneurial sort of focus. So, you bring some amazing business acumen to the business, of course, along with Kari. Parker, when you think about the platform and building the platform, what was the sort of thing that you were saying to yourself, if I can pull this off, this is going to make it a great experience for our clients?
It's a great question for me. I think, it was actually hard to kind of pinpoint what that was up front. And the reason is that, honestly, as we started looking, I guess, behind the curtain, underneath, the stage, a little bit of what needs to be fixed, if you will, or where we can help, there's frankly a lot of opportunity in that. Do we look at the arts organization standpoint? Do we look at the artist side? Do we look at the staffing internally, or do we look from the consumer lens? And so I think from us, from conception, we were like, how does this start? What are we really trying to solve? And we went back and forth with our advisors and board to really figure out, hey, are we solving the consumer side first, or are we looking to solve the arts organization side first? And I think for us, the clear whole was we want to make sure audiences have that ease of use first as a starting point, because without the audiences going to the arts, there are no arts. And so I think that's the first obvious choice, but it took a while to get there because, again, there's a lot of opportunity to help this arts organization and this industry as a whole level up to the next generation. So
I love it, Parker. It really makes all the sense in the world. I come on the platform, I can take a quiz, and then all of a sudden you start sort of feeding me things that the platform and the technology and the AI believe that I'm going to like and love. And of course, I'm going to, because I'm passionate about the arts. And it really makes so much sense. Now, Kari, one thing that's very interesting in researching for this episode today is you and Parker get to actually fly around and go to opening events, and you get to, be invited on the red carpet, and you get to see all these wonderful shows and everything. Is that one of the perks of also, having this Red Curtain Addicts? Because that sounds like a phenomenal perk for running the business.
I know, it's awful, right? No, it's been fantastic. And I've been going to the arts for years and years and years. And what really connected me to the arts is the people. And when I was seeing how sometimes programming was advertised, I thought, they missed the people part. Wait, let's talk about that artist on stage. How did he get here? Did you know it took this or that? Or did you know he had all the odds against him, but he still pursued his dream? No matter your profession, that can be so inspiring. And so that is really what this idea of Red Curtain that's encompassing all the arts in the addict, which is me and so many others that are addicted to these arts. I want to show you behind the curtain of how this comes together, because the more you understand something, the more you value it. And that's really what we're trying to solve here at Red Curtain Addict is, yes, we get to go to all these really great galas and shows, but it's not about this pizzazz or any of that. Of course, it's always fun, but it's really about getting down to the root of why this piece was created. Why should you care? And why is it worth your time? And that's really why we have traveled to give you that insight.
I love it, Kari. It's so deep. When you go to a show, you don't really understand what's going on behind the show. You don't understand the trials and tribulations of getting a show up and running. You don't understand sometimes the trials and tribulations of the star or the supporting cast and what it takes to put this together, whether it's an orchestra or a play or something else. Now, Parker, when we think about the platform, when people are done using, Red Curtain, and they're never going to be done, because once you get going, you're going to continue with it. But once they're done with the first interface, what do you want them to feel? What do you want them to understand about what Red Curtain can provide to them in their lives?
I like that. I think number one is discoverability. Can you find what you're looking for with these? Like, can we solve that problem and make it easy? Now, yes, we can spit out recommendations like Netflix does based on the shows that you're interested in watching, right? Or based off of the shows you've previously watched. But it doesn't stop there. There's so much new art happening all the time that honestly, the whole time we were building this AI and this algorithm to be able to, filter events based off of recommendations, we've been having this internal dialogue about how do we want this platform to hinder people from discovering new things, right? Because sometimes you look at the world of the connected web and unfortunately the way some of these big social networks work and sometimes you get siloed in a content bubble, and we're trying to break that. So yes, we want to recommend things based off interest points as a starting point, but there's so much more to discover. So keep coming to the platform, use it. I mean, it's free. So we just want this to be a tool for you to find your arts easier and then ultimately find your community. So I think the next version of where this evolves to is not just a way to find events with these and discover things and get recommended things, but ultimately connecting with a community of people that I think share the same values and want to experience arts together. So
that's beautiful. Parker, I'd like to stay with you for a minute. So let's just say that I have a small theater in a small town and I have a play that I'm putting on. Can I connect into your system and reach out through the system and sort of put my play up? Whether, I might be in a small town, but I want people to know about my wonderful play that we're putting on in the town.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now it's freemium from both sides. So users can join for free and get the full experience. And same with arts organizations. Our goal is really to remove that barrier of entry or that friction point of a pay to play model, just to make it easy. Because again, there are those off Broadway shows or those chamber groups or these ensembles that need the exposure, need the help, and we don't want to hinder that. Now, today we started with 8 cities in the launch, which is amazing. And so we can have a lot of dense events to be shown for the platform, but that doesn't mean that somebody like Des Moines, Iowa can't, list their events today. And, over time we'll build up that season or that city's repertoire, if you will, for to pull an art term.
Yeah. And Parker and I both come from smaller cities, right? And so those places are just as important as the busy and popular ones. And I think that's really what this is, the connection point is the heartbeat of a city is the culture. And let's really focus in on that and help you find it. Because let's just say we travel to a smaller city or a bigger city. We aren't local there. So how do we get plugged in? What's your art scene? I want to know what you're all about. That really also is not just for you locally, but people are traveling to your city. We want them to plug them in and really globalize local arts.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, Kari. And I also can see this, moving into a worldwide footprint. If I'm going to travel and I go to a city or I go to a country and I'm there for a few days and I love the arts or I want to see what's happening. I mean, what better way than to, ultimately and eventually log into Red Curtain, pull it up on my phone, press a few buttons, and there I can see things that are curated for me that I love. Maybe there's a concert going on with a symphony or something else that I didn't even know about. And it just gets fed to me through the app and through the system. So it makes all the sense in the world. I love that so much. Now, Kari, you're an artist in your own right. So what are some of the challenges that artists have, when they're part of a symphony or part of a play? What are some of the sort of the secret behind the scenes things that are happening with the artists? Because I think, they have their life, they're going through ebbs and flows of their life like everybody else. But when they hit that stage, man, they have to be on. So what's that all about and how does all that work?
Oh man, that's a great question. I've gotten the opportunity to meet so many artists and have been so inspired by them. And just like you mentioned, it is a very challenging path to go after that dream. There's so many people that want to play that violin, or that so many people that want that position on a Broadway stage. And so the persistence and, that dedication to your dream is something that I'm honestly addicted to being around. I want to be around that. And so where I found the majority of that existing was actually in the arts. And so I think the difficulty is that because there's so many, art organizations have a specific story they need to tell to sell tickets, right? And that is great. It's working. People can come. But I want to give that additional layer of, okay, here's what that person's story is, because everybody deserves the spotlight. No matter if you are the last chair violin or the first chair violin, I am interested in you. We are interested in you because you are what brings that sparkle to a city. You're that moment when I go in to see a theater or performance that takes me away because you decided to be 100%. So I'm 100%. And so that connection that audiences and people on the stage have has just always been something that I have craved. And so being an artist, I'm an oboist and have played in symphonies myself. And I decided, God, there's so many people around me that are fantastic, but nobody's talking about them. I'm going to set my oboe down and I'm going to take this different path. I don't know what it's going to be because I am from music and I'm not used to speaking in public, but I'm going to do it because they deserve this spotlight. And so that's really where this idea of Red Curtain Addict came about.
I love it. I mean, I love pulling the curtain back and seeing behind the scenes. I mean, there's so many times when I go to the orchestra or I go to a play or I see something, whether it's off Broadway or on Broadway, and I'm saying to myself, this is an amazing performer, but what's behind the curtain? What's behind the scenes? What's that person's story? It's so interesting to be able to pull that curtain back. And I know you're moving in that direction. I think that's going to resonate for so many audience members and so many people like me that just love the arts. Now, Parker, when we think about it, I'm saying to myself, let's say there's a small band that's, a rock band or a folk band or a pop band or a country band. I mean, you name it, or, EDM band. Are they also going to be able to join the platform? And how do you envision all that happening with Red Curtain Addicts?
That's a great question. I think end goal, maybe, we'll see, time will tell. I think right now we had to be very verticalized in our approach, staying with the benchmark performing arts, which is, Broadway, opera, symphony, jazz, and dance, kind of ballet stuff. And the reason for that is because, that's Kari's background. And frankly, that's, I think, the biggest opportunity. If you go search a city for events, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you find things, no doubt. But a lot of the things that they're pointing to are the big headliners, the Lady Gagas of the world that are performing in Vegas. And we all want to go to Gaga and hang out. Like, that's probably a great night. But there's a whole bunch of people that don't have that same visibility, advertising dollars, footprint, that we're trying to help kind of normalize, if you will. And I think our goal as a company is to standardize the arts going experience on the consumer side, which standardizes the way people can find and navigate them, and then ultimately globalize local arts, as Kari mentioned. So I think right now, sticking to our 5 benchmarks, and then we'll see where this goes.
I love it, Parker. And for the entrepreneurs watching the show, rewind what Parker just said, because that's a great way to focus in. And as an entrepreneur, it's sometimes so easy to start getting scatterbrained. But when you focus in on sort of your sweet spot, and you focus in at the beginning on things that really matter, and you focus on big market segments that have an opportunity to help you scale quickly, that's always a great idea, Parker. So congratulations.
She taught me that, by the way. That's a Kariism. Absolutely.
I love it. Well, Kari and Parker, congratulations to both of you. Now, Kari, you play the oboe, right?
Yes, I do.
And I would imagine throughout the years, you didn't start off being an amazing player. You started off, stepping over your notes and not doing very well. But there's an entrepreneurial story here, because young entrepreneurs and startup entrepreneurs, they also kind of step on themselves a little bit, and they kind of learn as they go. What type of lessons can you take from learning a musical instrument that you've been able to put into your entrepreneurial journey here with Parker at Red Curtain Addicts?
That's a great question. You won't be good at something unless you practice it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So today, I think we're used to, hey, if I want to know something, I just quickly search it, or I just want to be an expert tomorrow and I want to do this. There's all these packages available. But being an instrumentalist, it takes time. You have to give yourself that space to evolve. And it's up to you to decide if you want to quit or keep going. And there's also these different moments that people will say, you don't deserve that first chair, but you want it. So you don't just stop because you lost that audition. You keep going. And I think that persistency has always stayed with me, because I'll tell you, Red Curtain Addict has also had those barriers. People told me, no, it won't work. It's too big. It's nobody really interested in this. Nobody wants that. But when I went to people who actually were in the arts and the musicians or the people at the art organizations, they said, oh my God, that would be so crazy, but no one could do that. And so it's like, wait a minute. But if I just stick with it, if I just keep going, then it will become its own thing. And if I'm, again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not into it 100%, then who would be? And so no matter kind of these closed doors, it's really that continuation of your belief in yourself and the idea, and knowing that it's not just about you, honestly. It's really about the greater goal that you're trying to achieve, which if you go back to the instrumentalist part, it's not about just your one note. You fit within an orchestra. So it's about being really good at that, but then, really finding that sound to make something great. And so we've had great partners in this team. It's not just me and Parker. Yes, we're talking today, but it's taken a lot of different people to help us think through this: advisors, mentors, people in our team from a tech perspective as well. But yeah, I would say that the goal is just to stick with it. It's not going to come overnight. It won't. Just like an instrumentalist, you won't be a fantastic concert master. It will take years. And sometimes that's okay.
I love it, Kari. I mean, it's so great. And that resonates for me as an entrepreneur. And I know it's going to resonate for the other entrepreneurs watching the show. Rewind what Kari just said, because it's so interesting. And Kari, I know you're a singer as well. You're very involved on so many boards. You're really sort of like this artistic, glowing type of a person, and you bring that sort of to the system. And now we've got Parker, your husband. He's a technologist. He's worked at amazing companies. I mean, his background and experience in building technology platforms is really remarkable. So Parker, let me ask you a question. When a technologist gets in the same room as an artist, what does that dynamic feel like as a technology platform builder and sort of the entrepreneurial technologist of the partnership?
That's a great question. Magic in simple forms, because to Kari's point earlier, they're one and the same. If you look at any amazing platform that's ever been built, it's art, it's design, it's thought, it's project management, it's it's assembling an orchestra. It's literally what a conductor does on stage when she's pulling together the musicians, and they want a certain sound, right? Like, it takes a team, it takes a village. And if anything I've learned in my journey in business and entrepreneurship and tech is that there's so many great people out there. You got to find what people are good at, give them the same marching orders as everybody else, so we know the common goal, but then let them shine. And that's what happens. And so Kari, being an artist and a very savvy businesswoman herself, and then me coming in with my experience in business and the drive to help, I think that marriage is perfect in this, because I didn't know anything about arts prior to Kari. I'm not an arts person per se. Like, yes, I love all talent. So I appreciate all performances, and I appreciate anybody doing their best version of themselves. But I didn't know what art was until Kari kind of threw me off the deep end, and we were going to more symphonies than we were movies, which was new to me. But then she also created the condition where I was safe to ask uncomfortable questions, because I'm not a novice. I'm young in the arts. I don't know how to ask these certain questions. Like, what's a concert master? What is a first chair violin? I don't even know, and those questions could be scary for some people to ask if you're not around the right company. But that's the whole point of Red Curtain Addict, is everybody's welcome. We want everybody to come to the party, whether you're great at knowing arts and you're very deep, or you're new, because there's no dumb question. Everybody started somewhere, whether it was your grandparents or parents pulling you to a theater, or it was you taking a leap of faith to come with Red Curtain Addict on your first ever adventure. Like, that's it. But that's business too. It takes a stepping point, and you have to say yes and go for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love it, Parker. What a great answer. You said it's magic. I mean, one word right there. It's so unbelievable. Now, Kari, you and Parker have built an amazing team. I mean, you've got people on the board of advisors already, and people that work at Red Curtain Addicts that are really top-notch, world-class leaders, and really smart people that are helping you on this journey. When you and Parker think about bringing somebody onto the team, what are you looking for?
Mm-hmm. Great question. I think it is obviously, do you have a passion for the arts? Number one. Do you believe, and are you in line with our mission to make the arts accessible for anyone and everyone? Are you behind that? And then let's talk about your skills. I honestly think it's the passion first, because if it was just my skills, I would have been terrible and I probably wouldn't have worked out. But my passion, you obviously kind of see it on the screen here, is that it's kept this alive. It's really kept it going. And so when I, in the company of those that are just as passionate about this idea as me, and we really put our heads together, like Parker comes from a different background than I, but we had this really like, let's do it. That's really kind of put us together. And so, yes, people from the music world, great. Doesn't necessarily need to be from the music background. Hence Parker. There's so many different talents. And quite frankly, I really want a diverse team. People who know everything about the arts, the people like, I'm new, but I'm interested, but I really like your vision. Perfect. We want people from all different walks, because that's really what makes a company so dynamic, is it comes from those different perspectives, that from a tech side to a branding side to a communication of how we talk to our community. It really is empowering to just talk to multiple different types of people from different backgrounds.
I love it. Now I'm going to ask a question to Parker that maybe I possibly would want to ask Kari, but I'm going to put Parker on the spot here a little bit, because, I recently interviewed Levi Shemtov, who's the executive director of an organization called the Friendship Circle, and they do great work with special needs children. And one thing that they recently opened up was a soul studio where special needs children and special needs people go in and they make art. They make beautiful art, and it's just so eye-opening to see autistic children, autistic adults come in, and they form art, and they do paintings, and they do sculpture and everything else. It's just gorgeous. I mean, it's really, really incredible. And the people get a great experience from that. Parker, when we think about the arts and we think about, all the wonderful things that are out there, how do you feel the arts can sort of change the world? How can arts make a positive impact in the world that we live in? What things can arts do to make people uplifted in a meaningful way to make our world a better place?
I think, great question. I think it's ultimately what arts can't do, right? Because they're they can do so much on stage. I mean, you have a captive audience for a finite amount of time to tell whatever story you want to tell, to change the world's perceptions, the world's minds, the world's point of views on how they see a certain topic or genre or category or whatever it may be. The voice is so clear, and they have that, that time where that authentic communications, that one-to-one communication can happen in real time. So all I can answer your question is if I stand in my own shoes and what the arts have done for me. I've learned to appreciate people differently, because when I see someone on stage in that moment performing, whether it be a violin or an opera singer or whatever it may be, I am seeing that person's, and I said this earlier, best version of themselves in that moment. And that's why I like live art. They're like, digital is phenomenal, and we can go there, and there's a lot to talk about there, but like live art, you'll never see that same performance again. You may see the next night's similar performance, but in that moment, that's the last time you'll ever see that. And so to me, what an opportunity to connect with an audience and change their perception of whatever you're looking to do, or tell that story in a way that resonates with that audience. And I think, if I'm honest, the world right now, we need more change. It's happening. Everybody's asking for to be heard. Everybody's asking for their chance to be fair. Like, there's so much going on, and I love that time we're in as a populace. I love where we're at, and I think arts can be a great catalyst to drive that change forward even further. So that's why I love what we do. Because we want to help. We just want to help. Yep.
It's so powerful, Parker, coming from you. What you're doing with the platform now, Kari. I'm going to ask you a question that I normally would ask Parker, but I have to sort of turn the tables a little bit. So Kari, when you think about the technology platform coming from your artistic background, what bell and whistle or what addition to the technology platform are you envisioning in short order to make the Red Curtain Addicts platform even better?
Great question. The tech is such a great way to fast forward or really speed up how people find or experience the arts. So what we've done now is, you can search across genre, like we mentioned, you can have preferences. But again, that other part that I mentioned is that spotlight. And if you think about ESPN, it is a world of sports. Well, I want to create that world of arts. And a lot of times when you think about the team, you don't just think about the city, you think about the player. You get behind them, you want to know their stories. And so our next layer of that is to really enable artists to create their own pages so that a consumer or a user can then follow that page and say, hey, is so-and-so in town? This person's on my program. Who is he or she? Let me look it up on Red Curtain Addict. And it gives that really great, easy way to find about the person's stories. The next evolution of this is the community. I come from an influencer marketing background. I know how empowering it can be to have a great group of people around a brand, and a brand is only as big as its community. And that's really what we want to do with Red Curtain Addict is, all right, we want you to connect to the arts, step one. We want you to connect to the artists, step two. But then we want you to connect with someone like you, or maybe someone that's going to challenge the status quo or your opinion a little bit, and you want to have that dialogue. Then we're going to then talk about how they can connect with other art enthusiasts. So it's really this layer of this world that we envision that's around the arts globally.
I love it. This is such an exciting show, and I know you've only sliced out a certain amount of time for me today. I know you're just so busy building this platform to hyper growth, levels. And Parker, of course, you've in your career have built a lot of platforms for hyper revenue growth and hyper growth themselves. So congratulations on your background and experience that have led you to this. Parker, when we think about a husband and wife team, and building a business, one thing that comes to mind is what percent of the time as a husband and wife team are talking about, thinking about, discussing and sort of putting your hands together and, working to make Red Curtain even better. What percent of your time as a married couple are put toward the Red Curtain Addicts? Because most people don't work with their wife or their husband to build a company like this.
So I think I'm 100% always thinking about it. It's whether or not I open my mouth at certain points or not, I think is the right question. No, I think you have to find that balance. And we've had to in this relationship as well, because marriage comes first. We got married before Red Curtain Addict. We found each other before this. So that's number one. That said, we also have big dreams to make this thing come to life and help a lot of people. But that said, we also need to take time for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so we moved up, to wine country in the middle of the pandemic. And, we definitely made sure we get to go wine tasting on the weekends and live life. Because if you don't, I'll tell you, and this is for the entrepreneurs out there, the burnout factor is real. This is a passion play, and the passion will get you far. Grit will get you further. So passion and grit are equally as important. But knowing when to say, you know what, I can't get to everything, and that's okay. And the timeline's never going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, you're never going to get it done as fast as you want. Like, there's never going to be enough time in the day to handle it. But as long as you're taking steps daily, if you can check off boxes that you've moved the needle forward daily, then take that time to rest and then connect as you need to. So.
And then just to quickly add to that is that we've physically said to each other, this is you and me time. Like, we almost have to say that to just set the expectations. Like, Red Curtain Addict is absolutely something that we both are passionate about. But today, or on this walk tonight, or on this, we go on walks a lot because that's what you do in COVID, right? And we say, no Red Curtain Addict chat, just let's chat about something else. And that's what you want, right? Even from a coworker perspective, not even husband and wife, but sometimes it's better to connect with someone on a personal level anyways, because it makes it like, okay, I got to disconnect from that for a minute. And so we've definitely made it a point to continue, connecting personally and then obviously professionally.
It's so awesome. I mean, Kari and Parker, congratulations on what you're doing at Red Curtain Addicts. It's so inspiring. It's so interesting. Your entrepreneurial journey together is remarkable. And then your individual journeys that brought you together to start building this is also a remarkable story. Kari, you've got a great entrepreneurial business background as well, but you came from the arts. And of course, Parker comes from technology and platform building and hyper growth building. And you've come together in this very, very sweet spot. And like Parker says, it's been magic. And that's just awesome to hear with regard to what you're doing. Your passion for the arts comes through. Of course, Parker, you're learning more about the arts from Kari every single day. And I'm sure Kari's learning from you as well, Parker. So it's a beautiful story, not only a beautiful love story, but a beautiful business story as well. And I wanted to thank you both so much for coming on the show and not only bringing us behind the curtain, if you will, to tell us what's happening at Red Curtain with your focused approach right now to the 8 or 9 cities that you're focusing in with the certain genres that you're focusing in, but also letting us inside what the future will bring for Red Curtain Addicts. And then, of course, sharing with the audience what it's like to build an amazing platform with someone you love in a wonderful marriage. So it's just been a complete bow, really interesting. We're going to support Red Curtain as much as we can because the arts really can drive so many amazing things in the world. The team you've put together, absolutely remarkable, world-class. Kari and Parker, thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you, Andy. It's been a pleasure. We've really enjoyed the conversation.